The Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1 is finally getting the update, the patch that it deserves on the Nintendo Switch 2. So, in this video, I'm going to break down the news from Konami, the update, the patch that's already been released for this game on the Switch 2, and what kind of improvements they are bringing to this collection. But before we get into that, let's just go back and talk about this release, back on the original Switch all those years ago. And some of the disappointment that myself and many people felt when this came out. And when I first heard the news, I was hyped for this collection because it has some of my favorite Metal Gear Solid games of all time on it. So the idea of bringing Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3 to the Switch at the time was an awesome idea. I was pretty hyped for it. But upon release, upon news, we came to see that a lot of the ports on here were actually quite below the standard, the bar that we had expected. So, for example, Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 were running at 30 frames per second. There was bugs, the resolution wasn't great. It just wasn't a great port, a great launch on the Switch, despite the hype, the hope that we had had for these games. And if you go back and you look at some of the reviews, you look at Metacritic for this game on the Switch One, there was just a lot of disappointed people, a lot of disappointed Metal Gear Solid fans, and I was one of them. But I still decided to pick up the collection, pick up the game, not at launch, but quite a bit after when it was like $20. And I just wanted to be able to play these games on the go in handheld mode. And I still had some fun with it, but definitely was disappointed again with the frame rate and the performance, especially with Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3. But now that's all in the past because Konami has done something that I did not expect actually. It completely caught me off guard. And they finally released a patch improving the resolution, improving the frame rates, fixing some bugs, and just doing some quality of life improvements in general to this old collection here. So, what they've done is they finally got Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 running at 60 frames per second. And that's great to hear, and it was just a really big disappointment that those were even running at 30 frames per second on the Switch because those games had came out years and years and years ago on the PS2 and they were running at 60 frames per second back then. So for them to be released on the Switch at 30 frames per second, that was a huge disappointment, but Konami's righted that wrong and you can finally play these games at 1080p, so they've improved the resolution, and at 60 frames per second, and they've also done some quality of life improvements, allowing you to change the button mappings, things like that, fixed a few more bugs. So I think now this is finally the ports of these games that we wanted on a Nintendo console. And you really can't beat this now. Being able to play this in handheld mode on the go on a Switch 2 at 1080p, 60 frames per second. That's just awesome. And all three of these games, and there's more than just, Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3 on this collection, but those three games alone, like those are top tier Metal Gear Solid games. My favorite of those three is without a doubt the original Metal Gear Solid. And just so many memories playing that game on the PlayStation 1, just seeing what Kojima was able to do, the innovation, just captured my imagination. And some of the bosses in that game, the whole game was just a masterpiece. I played it so many times, again, on the PS1, but I remember even playing the PC version. So I played that game a lot, just tons of great memories. And I even pulled out the strategy guide off the shelf here. So this is for the original Metal Gear Solid. And I picked this up some years ago, and this is actually a really great strategy guide, I would say. If you're a Metal Gear Solid fan like myself or a fan of the first game, this is a great strategy guide. Tons of great screenshots in here, tons of great content, and even tons of great artwork. So we got here Revolver Ocelot, for example. You can see that. And just tons of awesome stuff in this strategy guide. So Metal Gear Solid, the original game, that's the one for me, the one that I'll never forget, the one that I find myself going back to play the most. Second game was good as well. I remember playing it on the PS2, like getting halfway through, putting it down for months, and finally coming back to it to beat it. Found it a bit repetitive, um, but it was good. They took it in a brand new direction, and I enjoyed it for what it was. And then Metal Gear Solid 3, of course, masterpiece of a game. Probably my second favorite Metal Gear Solid game of all time. So 3 was awesome. But you can't go wrong with any of them. And if you're someone who's never played the Metal Gear Solid series or Metal Gear Solid game, this is a must pick up. And the best thing about it is that it's cheap. Like you can find this for 20 bucks and under pretty easily, I would say. And now with the update, with the patch coming to the Switch 2, I think this is a must buy, a must have collection. And I really got to shout out Konami for righting their wrong, for improving the performance, for giving us the Metal Gear Solid collection that we want. And honestly, the Metal Gear Solid collection, that's deserved because this is such an iconic series, an iconic franchise that it just deserves that love. It needs to be at that frame rate, that performance. It has to be perfect. Let's be honest. This is a series that demands perfection because these are awesome games. So again, shout out Konami. And then on top of that, at the same time that this patch was announced, they talked about the upcoming Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 2. So they're bringing more Metal Gear games to the Switch 2. You're going to get Metal Gear Solid 4, which is a game that's kind of slept on, I'll be honest. Like that's one of the Metal Gear Solid games that I think people talk about the least. And I'm not sure why because I thought it was a good game. I played all the way through it. I beat it back when it was launched. And I'll be honest, I don't remember too much about the game because that's the only time I played it. I played through it once and never touched it again. But I remember enjoying it, having a lot of fun. I remember the final boss, and I liked it for what it was. So that's a game as well. I think if you've never played it, the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 2 might be for you. And on top of that, it has some other games, for example, Peace Walker, and one or two more, I believe. So we're getting more Metal Gear, and the Switch 2 is becoming an awesome platform, it seems, for the Metal Gear Solid games. And I'm curious to see if they're going to bring Metal Gear Solid 5 to the console at some point. If the Switch 2 would be able to get a decent port of that game, that would be interesting because Metal Gear Solid 5 as well was really up there for me. I thought that was an awesome game. Beat that, went through all the missions. And to be honest, that's a game I want to go back to and replay. I only went through it once, but I had a lot of fun with that game. Again, a lot of innovation in there. I guess the last Kojima Metal Gear game, right? So if they bring that to the Switch 2 eventually, we're going to have all the great Metal Gear Solid games on there. So fingers crossed. But again, had to come on, talk about the news. Definitely encourage you. Go pick this up if you don't have it. Finally got the love that it deserves. And you're going to be able to pick this up for cheap. So that's it. I definitely want to ask you guys, what do you think about the news? What do you think about the Volume 2 collection coming out? Did you expect Konami to drop this patch for Volume 1? If you've played it, what do you think about it? And if you don't have the collection, does this motivate you now to go out and pick this up? Because again, you can get this for 20 bucks and under. So drop a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe for more. And that's it. Have a good day.